Alright, welcome to the Mushoku Tensei Q&A. A thing I want to start doing with series that I finish, especially longer running ones, and especially one that the community was very involved in every time a new episode came out. So yeah, if you saw my community post and my post on Patreon, I asked you to send me some questions regarding Mushoku Tensei, and that I will be doing it for the Q&A, and yes, here we are. So if you missed it, sorry, be more aware, I guess. Well, let's get right into it. We'll start with CCOF5XL. If you had to pick a character to be the lead of a spin-off or prequel series, who would you pick? I feel like Ruijerd is a good one. Either Ruijerd before or after he goes on his adventure with Rudy and Eris. That'd be a good showing of what the soup-haired war was about. Actually just seeing it instead of just hearing the stories, and especially him losing his son and just the whole thing with the spears and the curse. Another one I feel like would be good would be Roxy. Of course, I'm biased because she's like my favorite character in this, but pretty much just what she was up to before the events of the story. I mean, we saw a little bit of like her upbringing in her village, you know, how she wasn't able to like communicate using their telepathic language, but just like who trained her, everything she went through at Renoa, everything that we've heard stories about but never got to see. Another one I feel like would be good would be seeing Paul and Zenith's old adventuring party, like what they got up to, how they became so infamous. The Black Fang was their name, I think. But yeah, those are my answers. Next one, Undercover 221. Sorry if you mentioned this, I didn't catch it, but do you have any hopes, expectations / predictions for the story going forward? Interested to hear where you expect things to go. I imagine you're asking this question from the perspective of a light novel reader, which obviously I have not, and I don't really plan on doing that because I like watching this series through the anime. I don't really do that in a lot of the shows that I do. I sort of just finish it and I'm just like, I'm looking forward to the future, but I never really give my predictions on it. I mean, I won't lie, there's little things I do know, not like huge points, but I know that this series goes way longer than I think it does. I mean, just where season 2 leaves off, obviously with the birth of Rudy's first child and also him being married to Roxy. I mean, it's safe to assume, I'm sure him and Roxy will probably have a child as well. I mean, obviously with how season 2 ended with like the collage showing everybody, obviously I'm sure it's guaranteed Eris is going to be coming back. And hell, he'll probably marry her as well. Because you already got 2, why not 3? Fuck it. I'm sure there are many more turning points on the horizon. At least one. There's still Orsted, because like there's still like these overarching villains as well. Plus there's like the king and like the hierarchy of like the royal families and all that who are dicks. You know, there's the whole death of Saros and all that, which never really came back, at least in season 2. Because plus there was the whole thing with the first turning point where there was that one guy who fought Ghislaine, and then when they all got teleported, and there's a lot of higher powers in all this that we haven't delved into in the anime at least. Because plus there's also the thing of, this is why I have notes, because I can't fucking remember names. I mean, for me it's been close to a month since I finished. I'm having trouble kind of remembering names. I can't remember her name, and for some reason I didn't write it down, but the masked girl trying to get back to their old world, I imagine that'll be a thing. Well, I mean, I talked about it in the series that I think it might come a point where she hesitates because she learns to grow close with all these people. I mean, when she got there, she's like, I hate this world, I want to go back. But through Rudy helping her, I'm sure it'll lead to a thing of maybe this world isn't so bad. Plus, I'm looking forward to whenever Orsta comes back into the story, her being conflicted between the man who saved her and Rudy, who she's grown close with. It'll be a balance of probably a lot more family drama and also insane action, which is really what this story is about at the end of the day. And overall, I'm really just looking forward to seeing it. I'm so happy that season 2 ended with season 3 being greenlit. Well, I mean, with this whole studio being made just to make this, it's like not like they're working on anything else, at least not that I'm aware of. Yeah, that's my prediction. Where's the OVA? What's your top 3 episodes? Ooh, that's hard. I haven't really thought about that. Can I just say like the 3 turning points? There's definitely episodes that I still think about a lot, but I haven't really solidified my top 3. I'm just gonna start throwing out episodes just to remember. I feel like the first turning point was really good, and obviously looking back on it, it's like, oh, it makes sense and all that, but you know, just at the time, the confusion, especially like if you watch my reaction to it, it's just, I had no idea what the fuck was happening. I'm like, what the fuck's a turning point? Just all these names and people that were being introduced in that one episode, it's just like, wow. We're even looking back on that episode, there's still questions that haven't been answered yet, like certain people who showed up in it. I think episode 17 of season 1 was really good. The proper reunion between Rudy and his father, them making up, coming to terms with everything that's happened. Obviously turning point 2 was really fucking good as well. There's just so many. Give me a sec and I'll narrow them down right now. My top 3 episodes. Number 3 I would give to episode 23. If you saw my reaction to it, you could probably guess why, because I went on quite the rant at talking about that episode. And then number 2, I'd have to give to episode 22 of season 2, which of course was the big Hydra battle and all that. And of course, Paul's exit from the series, and also Rudy losing his hand. In terms of action and animation, I think that was the peak of the show so far. It was some of the best, and also just story-wise, it just was a massive gut punch. And yeah, it's hard to pick between episode 22 and 23. And weirdly enough, my favorite episode, I think, is going all the way back to season 1, episode 5, which was the introduction of Eris and just Rudy really venturing out into the world on his own for the first time. Well, not on his own, but you know what I mean. Just because when I think back on the whole series, I really enjoyed that episode a lot. At the time, that may not have come across just because, I don't know, just the more I've stewed on it, the more I've really enjoyed it just because, I don't know, how they introduced Eris just as like this ultra tsundere. It's one of those episodes where it kind of works on its own in like the context of the story, but where it's one I could sort of rewatch without going through the first like couple episodes again and just be like, yeah, that was kind of a cool, sweet, self-contained story. It sets up a lot with Eris and of course like the beginning of the relationship between her and Rudy. It also shows Ghislaine and sets her up as a character, which is fun. Yeah, and it also was kind of like the first kind of showcase of like the action as well, with Rudy having that quick fight with those bandits. I don't know. These 3, season 1, episode 5, and season 2, episode 22 and 23, can kind of all sort of be mixed and matched between whether they're my first, second, or third favorite. But those are just sort of my top 3 in that sense. Because for me, episode 5 of season 1 was like my moment of being like, okay, hell yeah, I'm into this. I mean, I was already kind of into it at that point, but that was when it finally clicked for me, like, this is gonna be fucking fun. Yeah, those are my top 3. What are things that you didn't like about the anime? For example, mine are cutting off important details from the light novel in season 2 that make some things underwhelming. I mean, for me, not knowing anything about the light novel and basing my information solely off what you guys have commented, I mean, I could definitely feel when there were times when there maybe should have been more exposition or maybe more time given to certain scenes, but I get, like, you gotta remember, like, you're going from a light novel, a book, essentially, to a fully animated show. One is obviously going to be vastly differently paced as opposed to the other, which especially because you're going off of the novel, which doesn't have too many, you know, visuals from what I understand, other than like the covers and maybe some promotional art, which is why I give props to shows like this that adapt light novels as opposed to manga. Whereas like, at least with manga, it's like you have the scene already painted. It's like the storyboard is already right there. It's just all about how you expand it and stretch it out more. Whereas with light novels, it's like you have the story, but you have to build visuals then around it. One of my favorite shows of all time, my favorite anime of all time, Fate Zero, is like that as well. You know, it was based off a novel that didn't have any visuals really. So when it comes to stuff I didn't like, I mean, I guess that there were times where it's like, I feel like we could have gone a little bit, but again, you gotta remember that anime as well is also locked into like a certain time frame because of TV slots and all that. I would love to see maybe someday if there's like an ultimate director's cut of Mushoku Tensei where it gives you just that little bit more. But in terms of other stuff I didn't really like, there was really nothing I can think of. Though I went on such a rant at the end of season 2, I loved it, you know? I loved a show that really challenges your ideals like that, your morals. I like shows that get you to think, get you to talk. Though to me, it's to myself, but you know, you as well. That's why really, at the end of the day, I'm putting Mushoku Tensei up there with shows like Fate Zero and even Death Note, Code Geass. Like, though tone-wise and sort of story-wise, it's not similar to those kind of shows, I hold it up there in the sense that it really challenged me mentally in a lot of ways and emotionally, much more than I ever would have expected. And then, like, from a production side of things, I have nothing I didn't like, you know? I thought voice acting, story, art, animation, music, like, none of it was anything I could complain about. I mean, again, when you make a whole animation studio just for this one show, I think it'd be hard to mess it up. Really thinking about it, like, my only maybe one complaint would be the pacing in season 2 was slower than maybe I would have liked. Thinking about it, I don't know if we really needed to dedicate like 5 or 6 episodes to Rudy and Sylphie, that whole thing. At the same time, the payoff for that does feel nice. But another thing I don't like about the anime, the fact that I have to wait for more. And last question from you like Rudius's character development? I do. Again, throughout the story, mainly obviously once we got to like season 2, I compared him similarly to Thorfinn from Vinland Saga. I compared like the structure of Mushoku Tensei to Vinland Saga, just in that sense, like season 1, you have this young, naive character going through this world, and then like a big event happens and suddenly he has to now fend for himself. And through that, he meets people who maybe aren't the greatest greatest influence, but is who he sticks with. And he goes through all of this trauma, these different events, these battles, and then it's not until the end of season 1, when everyone by all accounts has left him and he's on his own again, that it all then hits him. It's just like, maybe what my father told me when I was a kid was right. And then we go into season 2, and it's like a whole new transformation for the character. Though he still starts the beginning of season 2 in that sort of naive state, still not really knowing what to do, he then goes to a place, sort of learns to humble himself, learns a lot more about himself, and goes through a bunch more trauma and more events, and eventually by the end comes out of it more enlightened. Now, where I obviously differ that from Vinland Saga is that Thorfinn, obviously in season 2, by the end becomes like Jesus, whereas Rudy, by the end of season 2, it's way different. That's where my comparison definitely differs. But in terms of just focusing on Rudy, his development was amazing to watch, you know, going from pretty much what I just talked about, just like this kid, just perverted child, and then ironically, by getting what he wants, it ultimately kind of destroys him in the end. But then it's through going through season 2 where then he chooses to go down his own path, where now, like, by the end of this whole labyrinth arc and trying to save Zenith, it's a development I wouldn't have expected, where it kind of was like reverse development. Rudy was going in a direction, but then that big event happened, which then sort of just put a hard stop to it, and now he's sort of going back and going in a different direction. Which is why, with the end of season 2, obviously there's more, and I cannot wait to see more. You can view season 2 sort of as the end, just because you can kind of guess, I mean, obviously not 100% where it's gonna go. It's like, obviously there's still gonna be hardships and battles, obviously with like Orsted and all that. There's still overarching villains and challenges ahead, but it's like, at the end of the day, the story is family. It's a beautiful story. And Rudy, though he's developed a lot, obviously, since being a kid, he still has a long way to go. And that, I think, was cemented perfectly with his final scene, you know, where he's at Paul's grave and he's like talking about that. At the end of the day, like at that point in the story, he's only what, still 18? He's got a lot of life left to live, hopefully, so long as nothing else happens. And yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. Those were about all the questions that were sent to me. Of course, if you still have questions, feel free to comment them on this video and I'll answer them best my ability. And of course, if I'm ever live again and you have questions still, you feel free to ask them there. And yeah, again, I'm gonna start doing this more for bigger series that I do, is ending them with a Q&A. Specifically, obviously, for series that have this big of an impact on the channel. Like Mushoku Tensei did way better than I could have expected here on the channel and has introduced a lot of new people to it, new people of the community, and obviously you are very welcome, and I hope you'll continue to stay as we now cover my new series, which is going to be Attack on Titan, which by the time this video is out, the first couple episodes will be out, and obviously on Patreon, we're going to be way farther ahead over there. And until season 3 comes out, I'm going to miss Mushoku Tensei. You know, through reading the comments, I understand that like season 2 wasn't received the best, mainly from light novel readers, but again, through me just being anime only, I'm ignorant to all that, and I still viewed it as a very amazing 10 out of 10 story, which at the end of the day, that's more what I'm here for now. My kid self was all about, you know, the action, the explosions, the pretty colors, the tits. Whereas me, though I appreciate those things, I have much more of an appreciation for a good story and good characters now. More so than those things. But either way, this is my Q&A ending out Mushoku Tensei. Join me for many other videos of the sort, be the future anime reactions, reviews, gameplay, and everything else that'll be coming out soon. So thank you all for joining me on this. I'm Lancer. Thanks for watching.